Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Drake. I'm the provost at the New York Academy of Art, and I want to welcome you to the 2024 New York Academy of Art Commencement Ceremony. It is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day, Eileen Guggenheim, who with her husband, Russell Wilkinson, have been the most ardent, long-standing supporters of the school, and I can say in all honesty, we would not be here without them. Please welcome Eileen Guggenheim.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for allowing me to be the first person who congratulates the great class of 2024. We all know how you struggled and how hard you worked to get here on this day, but you didn't do it alone. So may I ask you please to stand up and face the rear. I would like some people to stand up and remain standing, if you will. Would all the parents of today's graduates please stand up? Remain standing. Would all the spouses or significant others of today's graduates stand up? Would all the children of today's graduates please stand up? Would all the best friends of today's graduates please stand up? Any aunts or uncles, please stand up. Grandparents, I missed grandparents. So now the class of 2024 will applaud you for everything you've done to make this possible. Thank you all. My pleasure to introduce the president of the New York Academy of Art, who has given 15 years of service at the head of our organization, and 2 years before that, as a student suffering in just the way you did. This is these 2 years. David Kratz.
Well, class of 2024, today is your day. 2 years have gone by. Endless struggles, some successes, some failures, and a whole lot of learning. All of it was on show at the final critiques this year. It was glorious, filled with gorgeous work, work full of strength and skill and vision and concept. The work was as varied as all of you sitting here. Congratulations. You guys deserve a round of applause right now for that. So, as we sit here right now, I want to take you back in time a little bit. Do you remember what it was like on your first day at your first class? I do. Mine was a drawing class with John DeMartin. And I didn't know what to expect at all. I walked into the room with my classmates, and then the teacher said a few words, and then the model, a redhead, came in and dropped her robe and took a pose, and then there was nothing but silence as we all tried to get the first gestures or the first images of her gesture. All you could hear was the scratching of pencils and graphite. I was in a complete and total panic. I didn't have the same kind of training that everybody else did. I didn't realize what I was going to be up against. I was not sure how to proceed. And then when the break time came and I walked around and looked at everybody else's work, I was distraught. It was all so very, very good. And I realized that I was going to have to, work very hard to come up to pace with everyone. And no matter how hard I was, no matter how much I was intimidated, I was also totally thrilled and in love with it from the very first minute. I settled in as the year progressed. And I don't know if you remember what that was like, but getting to know all your classmates, gaining some visual fluency, then having what you considered a breakthrough, and of course, a bunch of failures. For me, just the array of visiting critics, the critiques, the panelists, the artists who were coming to show their work every week and talk to us, for me, it was like a whole world has suddenly just opened up. The most important thing I found in the beginning was community. People all around me with a shared focus. They were united by a desire to learn, a search for excellence, an exchange of ideas, a willingness to be open and vulnerable. It broke down all barriers. And though I was some 20 years older than most of my classmates, because I went in my 40s, I had something in common with everyone. No matter who they were, it was something real and something important. It was a passion for making art. I have to take this off, it's very hot. So let me tell you a little bit about my circuitous path to the school. I'm gonna tell you what my first job was and how opportunity might be around every corner for you as you go forward. So when I was in college, my family lived near Washington, D.C. And we didn't come from a really connected family, and nobody in my family had ever been particularly privileged or whatever. We were all from the West Coast. But we had one great uncle who happened to be a lieutenant general in the Marines, and he was stationed at the Navy Yard or something in Washington. And he happened to be a really good friend of John Glenn, who was a senator from Ohio and was famous for being the first astronaut who orbited Earth. So he's well known. And my great uncle arranged this job. It was a non-paying internship, and I took a semester off from college to go and do it. I was so incredibly excited. The first day, I got all dressed up, put on a tie, went down to the hill, walking down these long halls with these huge doors. And I opened the door and I went into his office. Snafu. The senator wasn't there. There was no record of my job. And my great uncle was traveling. So I couldn't get in touch with him. So I didn't have a job. I was like, there's got to be some kind of mix-up, which of course there was. But that was that. So I turned around and I left, and I was thinking, what do I do now? And I started walking down the halls of Capitol Hill just knocking on senators' doors. And I would say, like, do you have an internship position open, just to the receptionist? And they would say no. And they would, like, politely point me towards the door, and I would leave. But then I walked into the Maryland office, the Maryland senator's office, which is where I was from. And they said, well, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Maryland. And they said, oh, our intern just quit last week. We have an opening. And I said, I'm here. And they hired me. So I went home that night with the job, and when my parents were like, how was it? How was Senator Glenn and everything? I was like, I don't work for Senator Glenn. I work for Senator Sarbanes. He's from Maryland, and it's great. So it all kind of worked out. Well, it worked out until one of the very last days when, so anyway, but just the moral of that story is literally opportunity can be around the corner and you don't know it. It worked out until one of the very last days when the senator took me to lunch. And that was a big honor because he didn't really do that for people. But it was, I had gotten along well with everyone and kind of fit in, and it was all great. And we went to lunch, and I literally flubbed it. I had like nothing interesting to say. I hadn't done any real research or preparation. I thought we would just talk. And I could tell he was just counting the minutes till the time it was over. So that's the second thing. We were walking back, and I was thinking, wow, some preparation would have been great for this. So preparation is key, no matter what. Even if you want it to be spontaneous, prepare. The next few years, a totally random, kind of wandering, circuitous route. I went to college, I went to law school, I worked as a lawyer. I didn't like that at all. Within 6 months, I had quit. I worked then as an assistant in a theater production company. I worked as a writer in a PR firm. I worked as a freelance journalist. All I was doing was casting around, going through a series of jobs. But it eventually led me to starting a business. Even that, though, was not on purpose. I was just kind of making ends meet. And I didn't actually think of it as a business till I had to move out of my one-room apartment because there were so many people coming into work every day that we had to go get an office. It was a public relations firm. And in one way, it was great. I was a writer. I was telling people stories. It was many, many worlds, from lifestyle to tech to healthcare, you name it. We were representing all different kinds of clients. We were even introduced Starbucks to New York. It's hard to think of this now, but people in New York just drank like thin, watery coffee in cafes, or like coffee shops. So we would run courses for journalists that were called Coffee 101, and we would say, like, this is a cappuccino, this is a latte, this is an espresso. And, you know, as I said, you can't even imagine that now. The first one was on 80th and Broadway. I did it for a long time, and I had a lot of success, but I'll tell you this. It wasn't till I got to the Academy, when I sold that business, and I dropped out of life for 2 years and came here. It wasn't until I got here that I felt like I had found my people, and my home, and my meaning, and my passion. That's why the school is personal for me. After 20 years of doing all kinds of other things, this is where I found my people. And that's why it's the only institution I've ever truly loved. Actually, it's been more, I was going to say, whether it's been a job or a calling, I care so deeply because of the people, the artists who surround it, the teachers, my team at the school, the board, the supporters, the entire mix. It just makes sense to me, as crazy as it is. It's a sea I like to swim in. That brings me to my next point. Finding a community is truly essential for everyone, but especially important for artists. People think of art as a solitary activity, art making as a solitary activity. It is and it isn't. To sustain solitude, which it takes, you need connection, you need community. And the relationships you make while you're at school create that. And you take them with you when you graduate. A community of supporters, patrons, peers, and friends. You're 2 years a student, and you're forever an alum. That network stays with you for your life as an artist. I don't really know any other art schools that have this kind of community. I think it makes us truly unique. We're so lucky today, by the way, that our speaker is Roberta Smith. I'll introduce her later, but I will just say that she's deeply familiar with the art world, as you know, and about the practice of being an artist in light of recent history and current dialogue. So I'm purposely not talking to you about any of that kind of thing. But what I am trying to talk to you about is how to be happy on your journey as an artist. I think there's no way to make meaningful art without total dedication, without total immersion, without total commitment. And the key to happiness within that is finding to create a world with people you want to be with. People who talk about the things that are intrinsically of interest to you, who spend time thinking about the things that you want to think about, and who do the things that you never tire of. When I think about it, choosing your people is actually a way of being honest with yourself about who you are. The people you choose are a reflection of you. As I said, it's always going to be a solitary activity, making art. But as long as your brain lights up when you do it, and doing it as hard as it is an activity so engaging that you don't even notice time passing, and you feel filled with joy, the joy of truly meaningful, important accomplishment, when you make something that finally lives up to your ideals, then you're going to be okay with the solitude. You'll be okay as long as you bookend it with people who nourish you, stimulate you, and support you, people who believe in you. And as long as you aren't worrying about finding an audience, but only thinking about the handful of people whose opinion you truly care about, you can survive the inevitable ups and downs of critical reception in the market. The quote-unquote audience doesn't even know what it wants until you show it to them. They're always looking for the next new thing, they're always following the herd, and they're seeking what they're actually told they should like. So you can only make work for yourself. If you do, the audience is going to find you. And as long as you can sustain yourself with a community with whom you can share the good times and the bad, you'll be just fine. You take your status as an artist with you when you leave here today. There's no higher calling than that. So look around you, to your left, to your right. Look behind you and in front of you. And what do you see? You see a network of friends and colleagues who will support you, challenge you, inspire you, and be there for you. In addition to the education that you've received at the Academy, you've also received a community. I'm going to finish today with a quote by the Spanish poet Antonio Machado. To me, it's oddly and totally reassuring. I think about it all the time. He says, "Wanderer, there is no road. The road is made by walking." Thank you. Now it's my great pleasure to announce our student speaker, Benjamin Staker.
Hello. Hi. Oh, wow. Congratulations, class of 2024. We did it. And a big shout out to family, friends, and faculty. It was a group effort getting here, and we couldn't have done it without you. So congratulations to us all. I wanna thank you guys so much for allowing me to be up here and to celebrate this insane achievement. It's such an honor, and I'm so excited that we all get to share this moment. So first, I want us to just breathe in. Let's take a deep breath. Breathe in success and accomplishment and joy, and then a long exhale. Breathe out all of the stress and the struggle that it's taken to get here. So, yes, it was a struggle. My path getting here was definitely a rocky one. When I first was accepted in 2021, I was convinced that admissions had made a mistake. And I was waiting for the other shoe to drop and to get this email that was like, "Oh, oops, you suck. We don't want you here." I was so wrought with imposter syndrome that the first days and weeks and months that I hid from everyone. I didn't dare speak or share my work. lest I get found out and people discover that I didn't belong. As well, I thought that if I worked harder than everyone, I would be able to prove that I belonged. So I just hid out, I worked myself to the bone, and kept my head down. And obviously, that did not work. Because of shame and fear and burnout and some serious life and health issues, I made the decision to drop out, withdraw, excuse me. I was crushed. It was a very long year of just kind of sadness and until I was able to make it back with the help of our student services department. Yay. They saved a spot for me, and I was able to rejoin and become a part of you all in the class of 2024. So I didn't initially consider the prospect of entering a new cohort, but when I walked up the academy steps a second time, I was again completely terrified. I do a really good job of reading people's minds by making up what you're thinking about me and then believing it. I was convinced that everyone was judging me. I thought you would look down on me for withdrawing. I thought you would ignore me or gossip, and I wouldn't get along. I wouldn't make friends, and I wouldn't thrive in the way that I feel like I did. I was so glad to be wrong because of all of you, because of your warmth and your welcome, your curiosity, open-mindedness. I found I was walking into a space where it was safe to let my rawness show and to be vulnerable. So my first year, the first impression was that I was in one of the only shared studios in the school at that time, in the 4th floor hallway. So I want to make a big shout out to Fatima, Kurl, and Xiao for being there with me. Yay. We banded together. We shared support and space. We shared a coat rack, and we shared an outlet. Because, we help each other here. We share tools, we share time, we share expertise, and we share our lives. Just the mere fact of what we do makes us kin, artist to artist, heart to heart. We experience the same pains. We revel in the same joys. We collect and we share our sorrows and successes, feeling every moment of it, the good and the bad. We are all in some way traveling a rocky road of our own. The industry is treacherous, life is expensive, the world is unkind, but that is all bearable. Life is not so hard because it's not so lonely. We've all got people to persevere with. And if you're here, you've at least got me and the people sitting next to you. So to start, that's 3. And here we are. It's not a long program in the grand scheme of things, but it's enough. Enough for seeds to be planted, propagated, and begin their growth. Enough for us to learn to walk, to run, to hit a wall, to jump it and keep going. We're going to leave here with our heads held high. I'm so excited for us. I'm excited to watch you all flourish and thrive in the world. With the foundation of our education, we have all been thoroughly set up for success. But it's important to remember that success doesn't look like the same for everyone. Remember, comparison is the thief of joy. For me, success doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to look like cash and prizes. For I believe that the greatest prize can be found within oneself. For me, what I seek in life is contentment. To make art when I want to, which is always. To live as I please, and to be with the people that I love. In Buddhism, there's a teaching called the Middle Way, which talks about neither total asceticism, which is the denial of earthly pleasures, or indulgence, but a strong, soft, slow happiness. And that is what I wish for all of you. Excitement comes and goes. Joy lasts only a short while. Dopamine spikes do have crashes, but serenity is stable. Contentment is sustainable. Of course, I want everyone to have cash and prizes and success. I want happiness and excitement for everyone. But most importantly, I want you to remember to be proud of yourself. And whenever the racing hearts filled with joy begin to slow their beating, there is a soft and tender place to land. Sorry. I'm such a crier. A place where you can breathe and have space to acknowledge yourself for all you've done up to this point. You don't have to fear that you don't belong, and you don't have to push yourself to burnout to claim your place, because you've already earned it. Your place is right here. And here we are. We've accomplished a huge milestone, and we've done it together. As a community, let's never let that die. Let's hold on to each other, hold each other up. Let's continue believing in one another. Let's breathe and revel in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. That was just beautiful. Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, now it's my really great honor to introduce our commencement speaker. And I'll tell you that I was so happy when she said yes, because in fact I had asked her and pursued her on at least 2 or 3 different occasions throughout the years to do this very thing. And when I heard she was retiring from her job, from her weekly deadlines, I thought maybe this time it will work. So I called her husband, a great friend of the school, Jerry Saltz, another legendary art critic in New York. And he said, yeah, I'll bet she would do it this time. And so I wrote to her, and she said yes. And that was amazing. I'm not going to give you a whole litany of things about her truly remarkable career. I want to tell you just the list of things she did like early on. After, like when she came to New York, first she was in the Whitney studio program, and then she worked as a studio assistant for Donald Judd, and then had a secretarial job at MoMA, and then a kind of gallery job at Paula Cooper, and then she started writing reviews at Art Forum and Art in America and Village Voice. And I tell you all those early jobs because she turned into a legend. She began writing for the Times in 1986, so that's almost 40 years ago. She wrote the featured essay in Donald Judd's catalog Raisonné, and she became the co-chief art critic at the Times, the first woman to ever do so. And I am just incredibly honored that she is with us here today. So thank you, Roberta, for joining us, and come on up.
Hi. I haven't done this in a while, so if I bog down, maybe you guys have like pressing questions or something, because it's really weird for me to think about speaking without a Q&A. I can echo what David was saying by the feeling of being a fraud and how long that can be in your life. And I wrote for about 12 years or 10 years before I thought, this is what I'm supposed to do. And that was when I went to The Voice and writing. What happened was that my audience became real to me. And that it was a kind of truth serum situation, in that I knew that what they were the art I was writing about would be on view at the same time as my review would be out, which wasn't the case in the art world, where reviews usually followed shows by about 6 or 8 weeks. So that was just a shock and a thrill, but I'd never had that situation. The review meant that people to take my review and go to a show and see if it was useful. to them. And that was very terrifying. And I always love these moments of terror. You will have them periodically. And they are basically, I think, healthy and humbling, and they sort of keep you with a good perspective, keep things real. So anyway, I sort of have a speech here. Good afternoon, congratulations, and you're on your own. Your art education, which with luck will continue for the rest of your life, is now completely in your hands. In the art you make, the art you look at and fight about, in the books you read, the music you listen to, in the friends you have made here and that you will make, in the pressure of studio visits, and again, in your friends. I'm going to be echoing David a little bit, but friends are the most important thing. And you can go for years without them, believe me. My 20s were really lonely. If you're out of your 20s, congratulations. If you're not, learning to educate yourself is a process. Learning and then doing it is another process. And I was especially lonely because of my personality. And it just happens. You just make the best of it. But the main thing is to keep focused on what it is you want to do in your work so that the work becomes your main company. Artists are among the most amazing people in the world. They're just fantastic. They make life worth living. Art makes life worth living. I usually keep my distance from them because I'm a critic, although now I'm retired, I get to be friends again. But it may be that I and most of us love their work more than them. And that they make things that we see before we know we need to see them. They make things that bring us to consciousness and show us the world, at least through their eyes. But again, a little bit of caution is advised. One thing that young artists do is go work for older artists, and you can be very overawed by that. So you have to know when to get out of that situation. You have to know that there's a little too much influence going on because you really probably will like the artist and be impressed and everything. When I worked for Judd, at a certain point, I just said, I got to get out of here or I'm never going to know what I think about anything, because he had a very clear-cut personality, total lack of self-doubt. So I left. I'd like to say, I don't know where you're going. How many of you are trying to stay in New York? Yes. You can always build your own art world. Wherever you go, you will find artists to know and people who lead aesthetic lives. And you can also do some of that building on the internet. But New York, which I came to in 1970 and continue to love, is the biggest, the most competitive, with the most going on, and not just in terms of the arts. It is like an ocean in terms of museums, galleries, and art criticism, and other cultural forms. It has a special density, which I've always loved, where you can spend almost all your time in company with people who believe in art as much as you do, which is a great luxury. But just by walking out on the sidewalk or taking the subway, you have this intense reality check. You see how lucky you are, you see what the rest of the city is like, you partake of its energy rather than what's happening between you and your work. New York's art world has turned out to be amazingly sturdy. You can badmouth it all you want, but it's full of energy across the generations. I was convinced of this by the way the gallery world roared back in the wake of COVID, really to everyone's shock, becoming larger with more galleries than any one person could comprehend or even see. I used to see all the galleries in New York in basically one day. Bykirk Gallery at 81st Street, 57th Street, Soho. It was very leisurely. But this also means that New York has an element of youth in it right now that's very, very tangible. We have young dealers practically in all 5 boroughs, or at least 4 of them, young dealers wanting to show young artists. And that creates a great feeling. And I haven't had this, it's just very palpable. I don't think it's ever been so palpable. Not necessarily in a good way. There are a lot of people making art that maybe shouldn't be making art. And I'll say this to you, not every one of you may continue to be an artist, because it's very, very hard, and you have to interrogate yourself a lot about it. And you have to be incredibly critical of your own work. And only be an artist if it's the only thing you can do. There's nothing else that you can do. And that's when you're an artist. It's not like you could go do something else. You don't have that choice. But I will say that any kind of degree in the arts is incredibly valuable, not only for what it teaches you about the most important part of people, which is about creativity, but also because it prepares you to connect in so many different ways with art. When I came to New York, it was very abstract. I didn't know what I wanted to be, except I knew I was not an artist. And so I didn't know, what am I going to do? And I got here, and the most amazing thing, aside from seeing real artists that I'd read about and all that, but the most amazing thing was realizing that in the art world, artists are sort of in the minority. And all these people around them, working in galleries, working in museums, writing art criticism, preparing walls for art, whatever, all these people found something to do with their creativity. Some of them through very predictable ways, went back to school, got an MA, PhD, and they're set. But the foundation that you have in terms of thought and in terms of your ability to analyze is priceless. And that's what you will go through life with. For example, I don't know how many of you are painters. Is that a big proportion here? I feel like in terms of me as an art critic, it took me forever I always loved painting. It took me forever until I realized I can really see it. You have to realize that you're going to go through this period of development where, it will get better. You will absorb things, and they will change you. One of the great gifts of being a critic in New York is that there are people who refuse to give up. I remember going to first shows of people who weren't even that young and thinking, well, that's never going to work out. It just wasn't strong enough or promising enough. And then doggedly, these artists, I didn't say that to them, so they, it's fine. But they didn't give up. So now, in the last 10 years, I've started to see shows, especially by women, who are making really good work that I've been sort of watching. The person I wrote about recently, A.J. Hauser, I've seen all of her shows and kept come on, A.J. And she kept almost hitting it, having more misses though. And then finally she had this show this spring where she was just on top of it. And she almost made me worried because I was thinking, what's she going to do next? She can't run out of things to do now. But there are the most of those here, young artists and dealers. I think any successful artist has a combination of three things: discipline, talent, and integrity. And talent is the least important. If you don't have discipline, it will never grow. And you can grow so much further than what you're doing at the entry point, what you're doing now. It takes discipline to make that happen. It takes looking at other art, your own art. It takes talking to friends. It takes so much work. And without integrity, you won't protect it. You have to sort of, whatever situation you're in, you have to size it up. And in New York, you would do this by going to galleries. You can see which are the stronger galleries, which have the stronger artists. You can see which ones have kind of more integrity. What can I say? It's in, like, some galleries will just feel sleazy to you, and you will think, I don't ever want to see my work here. And if that gallery is the only one you get an offer from, say, you have to say no. You can't just accept something to get your work on view. And that kind of refusal will reveal to yourself who you are, what you want to do. And it sort of makes it more likely that something better will come along. So, a lot of these artists I've been talking about were not necessarily having shows. Some of them would just have a show and then 20 years later, blam, and there it was. And much as I love artists, and this is part of integrity, what you have to realize is that every one in the art world, no matter what they do, has their own chance of integrity. And that there's a tendency to think of the art realm, like I would just say generally, don't be snobs, okay? The tendency in the art world is to see it as a kind of ladder, with artists on top and everybody else in some kind of arrangement down. Usually dealers and critics are probably on some of the lower rungs, shall we say. Curators are in between, maybe collectors. What you have to do is realize that the art world is a wheel, and art is in the middle, and every spoke is a different activity. And every spoke has the same responsibility and the same duty to art. So you have to be doing what you think is best for art. And if the message comes back is maybe don't be an artist, you have to think that through and see that through to its conclusion, one way or the other. But you can't get so full of yourself that you're not going to think about this larger thing, because that is the ultimate test. And it can bring you to the truth. You have to strive for originality. That's what the goal of discipline is. You have to work to look at your work as disinterestedly as possible, as you can muster. And you have to see what other artists are in there. And you have to show as many of them as you can the door. They have to be removed. You're never going to be completely original. But what you want is to just have the very few that meant the most to you there. And you have to, your work has to reflect back on them. It has to expand our understanding of what came before. With Judd, Judd had a debt to, and he helped illuminate the work of Pollock and Barnett Newman. And you can see that. You learn something from younger artists about their devotion to older ones. So no one is completely original, except Mozart, maybe, or Dolly Parton, who wrote Jolene, and was about a woman speaking to a woman, which is not too usual in country music at that point. And then in the same day, she wrote, I Will Always Love You. And that's amazing to think about. Just in the passage of one day, she came out with those two songs. So accept that your voice will never be completely original, but just appraise it as disinterestedly as possible. Art is the most advanced operating system that our species has devised to explore consciousness, the seen and the unseen, or the unseeable. That is one way that art has survived, because it passes on something down through generations. And in passing it on, it maintains its own life, so that not all ancient or historic art is alive for all of us, but some of it is alive for most of us. We will find something that will help our work that will be several centuries old, because modernism is not that young. You know, you can go back and, I mean, how many of you have been to the Met to see the Cycladic figures yet? Which is modernism when, like 1100 BC. So it's a fabulous display. And don't be afraid of failure. You will fail. You will fail either to yourself or you will fail in front of people. It doesn't matter. You have no choice but to fail. You know, you may have to find your inner Guston, which is that at a certain point you turn your back on everything that's been, or almost everything that's been the basis of your reputation and your work, and do something completely different that seems antithetical. I just want to leave you with a couple of quotes. One is from Friedrich. I'm forgetting his name. The poet Friedrich. An 18th century German poet whose last name starts with an H. And I have this over my desk, but I haven't looked at his name that much. He said, "All art is dedicated to joy." And I used to think that was some kind of platitudinous thing to say. But what you have to realize is that when we look at art that really gets to us, we are experiencing something that works, something that doesn't have any extra spare parts, something that's completely efficient. And there is an immense joy in that. Art that works is in itself a joy, no matter what its subject, no matter what its form or material. It can deal with tragedy, it can deal with the horrors of war, whatever. But you have the experience of an artist putting thought into material and getting it across to you. I actually think that all art is kind of humorous in that way, it goes beyond joy, but some people have said that's not really right. And the other thing is to remember what Bartlett Newman said, which is we are making it out of ourselves. So originality really is getting as close in to who you are and what you've been through. And there is originality in there for each and every one of you. It's not a question like somebody's original, somebody isn't. Somebody has worked harder and somebody hasn't. And good luck.
Thank you, Roberta. I knew you were going to hit it out of the park, and I thought I was the only imposter in the room, but if you've ever had imposter syndrome, that's very reassuring. I'm now going to announce the 2024 awards. Academy is fortunate to have the support of its patrons and trustees, which makes it possible to give much-needed student scholarships. We also have the generosity of so many in our artistic community, including museums, art supply stores, and foundations reflected in our commencement awards. The Chubb Fellowships. The Academy is pleased to continue its partnership with Chubb Insurance as the title sponsor of the fellowship program. The Academy awards Chubb Postgraduate Fellowship to outstanding individuals based on quality of their work, potential for growth, and the commitment to the Academy community. The fellowship allows these artists to spend one postgraduate year in residence at the Academy. The 2025 Chubb Fellowships are granted to Manuelo Caicedo, Benjamin Staker, both graduates from the class of 2024, and Brendan Sullivan as an alumni from the class of 2018. Faculty sabbatical. I am pleased to announce that Michael Grimaldi, our highly respected director of drawing and anatomy, has been awarded a well-deserved half-time sabbatical for the coming year. Congratulations, Michael. John?
We will now confer the Master of Fine Arts degree. Ato Abong Ini Abasa Apama. Manuela Caicedo. Corbin Carlton. Nemo Chang. Sochi Cisneros. Pedro Dalstella. Yassi Delami. Dorit Eliao. Connor Gewurtz. Danielle Golden. Fatima Havaldwala. Havaldwala.
It's okay, don't worry about it. Thank you.
Catalina Jellybean Holland. Hannah Elizabeth Jennings. Naomi Katz. Helena Kozovovich. Bethany Lentini. Sarah Lorito. Dean Mabalot. Jonathan McGregor. John Matito. Mustafa Mohsen. Oriana Multisanti. Madeline Owen. Jamie Owens. Kaylin Palku. Jeremy Roy. Candice Russell. Nicola Russell. Guillermo Serrano Amat. Chris Shen. Benjamin Staker. Herman Tejes. Zhao T. Wang. Anna Victoria Waters. Kaylee Weil. Jean-Paul Winter. Kirill. Megan Zapula Hodera. Lydia Zoles.
We now confer the honorary doctorate degree. Having written on Western art and non-Western art from the prehistoric to the contemporary eras, and seeing her main responsibility as getting people out of the house to see art, has been recommended by the faculty and trustees of the Academy and is hereby granted the honorary degree of Doctor of Fine Arts by the New York Academy of Art as entitled to all the rights and privileges pertaining to that degree. In witness thereof, this diploma is granted the day of May 16th, 2024 to Roberta Smith.
Congratulations, Roberta. And when you find out what those rights and privileges are, let me know. Okay. Okay, everyone can sit down there. And will all the graduates please stand? By the authority vested in me by the New York State Board of Regents, the National Association of Schools of Art and Design, the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, and the Board of Trustees of the New York Academy of Art, I declare you graduates of the Master of Fine Arts program of the New York Academy of Art, entitling you to all the rights and privileges pertaining to your degree. Congratulations. I just want to thank everyone in the room for celebrating these wonderful artists with us today, and especially Roberta Smith. Your speech was beautiful. And invite all of you back to the school for refreshments and to see the thesis show, the Master of Fine Arts show. So see you back at the school, and here's to you.